is a regular board meeting of the Cameron Park Community Services District. Today is Wednesday, August 19th, and we're convening this meeting at 6:32. I'd like everyone to, all of our guests here, we do have some protocols that we'd like you to use when you'd like to address the board. So those are posted right now on the board. You have a button that you would click to raise your hand. It's under the participants tab on the bottom of your Zoom screen there.
Is that number 9?
Is that number 9?
To
what's your question, Ellie?
To raise your hand.
That's when somebody dials in, not when they're on the computer.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and we'll start with our roll call. And Jill, could you read all names?
Director Scobie?
Here.
Director Easton?
Here.
Director Carlson?
Here.
Director Wooten?
Here.
Director Morrison?
Here.
Thank you. And we'll move on to our Pledge of Allegiance. And at this point in time, we typically just have one person read the pledge. And that way we're not all talking at the same time. It makes it a little more clear. And Felicity, could you please read the Pledge of Allegiance for us?
Proudly, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you very much. And just letting you know, the way our board meetings work here is that public testimony will be received on each agenda item, as it is called, and the principal party on each side of an issue is allocated 10 minutes to speak. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes, except with the consent of the board. An individual shall be allowed to speak on an item only once. Members of the audience are asked to volunteer their name before addressing the board, and the board reserves the right to waive said rules by a majority vote.
Okay, talk now.
When they say something,
Not yet, not quite yet. Our first item of business is our adoption of the agenda. And we actually should go out to see if there's any discussion on the adoption of the agenda. So Nikki, is there anyone raising their hand?
I don't have any hands raised.
I got, wait. Oh man, they're not seeing me.
Don't talk. We can hear you.
And then
Okay.
Nikki, we have, thank you. So from the board, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda. This is Felicity.
And I'll second that. This is Eric.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor? And Jill, could you just read everyone's name?
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Easton?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
All right, the agenda is adopted 5-0. Moving on to our next item is recognitions and presentations. And Jill, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce our recognition participant.
Sorry, my office light goes out if I don't move too much. So tonight we are recognizing Kate McGoulahan for her service to the district. I think that there are some challenges for Kate's family related to COVID. And so I think that she is family first is our motto around here. And so I think it was a heavy heart that we see her go. Kate came to work at the district in July of 2018. She served with us for 2 years. And I have to say that Kate really transformed the CCNR and ARC office. We went from a card file system that kept records of complaints and architecture review to a system that is now on a software system and has much better tracking. And that was a great accomplishment just for us for tracking and for follow-up with all of our residents. Also, the other thing that really transformed was the community engagement piece. We did do some workshops and outreach during Kate's tenure. And also our architecture review committee became a community-based review committee. It's made up of community members and not district employees. And so that was also a great transformation for us. So we just want to wish Kate well. I think that some of the comments I heard from residents was that Kate was compassionate, professional, thorough, attention to detail, fair. I think that it's really difficult to make everybody happy when you work in the CCNR office, but I think that everyone can agree that they were treated fairly and with respect, and Kate did her job well. So anyway, so hats off to Kate. She's going to help with some transition to a new CCNR officer that we hope to get started by the end of the month. And so there'll be a little bit of transition time. So she'll wrap up with the district at the end of the month.
Thank you, Jill. Let's go ahead and hear from some of our other board members if someone would like to start.
Yeah, this is Felicity. Kate, it's so good to see you. I believe I served on the CCNR committee for much of your time here at Cameron Park, and I really appreciate your bringing the CCNR records up to speed in a modern way, optimizing them so that they were more easily accessed and committee members could see photographs of what the issues were, and we had a better sense of when things might have kind of passed their due date, if you will. And I also really commend you for reaching out to the community, and I remember a couple of the big workshops with members of the community about CCNRs, and also digging up all of our, as far as we know, pretty much all of the CCNRs that we could find. I don't even know if we had them all available. So they're now mostly posted on CameronPark.org for people to see. I'm sad you're going, but I completely understand, and I look forward to seeing you around in Cameron Park. So thank you so much. Our CCNR function is just going to be better because of you. So thank you.
May I say something?
Yes, Ellie, go ahead.
I've worked with Kate on several different occasions where I think, oh, there's no way we're going to handle this. And she has come through like a champion each time. And I couldn't be more pleased to work with someone as Kate.
Thank you, Ellie. Any other board members?
Yes, I'd like to chime in and just echo what's been said. Kate has just been such a treat to work with. Of course, for all of the details and all the organization and just bringing everything so far, so fast. But what impressed me early and consistently, Kate, was you owned this job. You made it yours, and you cared about it, and you cared about the community, and you were able to just separate what could have been so difficult in that and did the good work, and made yourself such an important, vital part of the team. I heard that from you a number of times, how you appreciated being a part of such a team at the CSD. And you need to know that part of it was what you brought to it too. So thank you so much for your good service here. We are going to miss you in this role very much, but not around town. Looking forward to seeing you.
Hi, Kate. Director Morrison here. I don't see you around town, but I don't go out. So maybe, hopefully in the future I will. I said to Jill when I heard the news that it was hard to hear because I think you had a tremendously calming effect on the office. And I was very appreciative of your outreach to the community, how you comport yourself, and you were a tremendous asset to Cameron Park, and we're going to miss you very much. And thank you for all that you did to bring us into the present time with the reporting program. And I know you put a lot of work into that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Kate, I want to add some, we have some background noise.
I'm sorry, it's Abby.
Oh, I see. Thank
I'll
you.
fix it.
Kate, I want to thank you. I know being a CCNR officer is a challenging job, and you did it with such poise and excellence that we're going to miss you a lot. You've really brought professionalism and efficiency to the position, and we are going to miss you. But I will see you around town, because I did see you around town, and hope to see you a lot more. So there may be some staff that would like to speak as well. Does anybody else want to chime in?
I'd like to say a few words. So I had the pleasure of working with Kate for the last 2 years, and sitting on the architectural review meetings, and just to see the transformation of the department, the organization, how everything is now digital. It really has come a long ways. And she did a really good job of organizing it and involving the community. One of the big challenges, I've kind of taken ARC for the last couple of weeks, and when you start to realize the magnitude of just the ARC side of things, having, I don't know, 93 different CCNRs, each one has its own little twist to it, and it's a little, there's a lot of gray areas. It's a really tricky job. It's tough. And
Yes.
I think she really excelled well at it, and she's definitely going to be missed by not just me, but all the park staff as well.
I'd like to speak for a minute. Kate was my office next door neighbor, and so we got to chat a lot. We've worked a lot together and worked on agendas and everything else. And I just want to say we're really going to miss you, Kate. And I definitely hope to see you around and come knock on my window anytime.
I want to say, personally, I'm going to miss Kate a bunch. And professionally, she brought a sense of professionalism to the office that was very appreciated. She was very quick to learn the BILA. She was very quick to learn about budgets. She was just awesome. And I'm going to miss you, Kate.
Yeah, I want to say, Kate, that you can come take that Ford Taurus for a drive anytime you want.
He doesn't come back, or you?
All right, is there any other staff members who would like to speak? And Kate, would you like to say a few words?
First, I want to check. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. I had to log out of one device and into my daughter's iPad to get it to even work. I want to thank everybody for all the support from staff and the board and the committees. It has honestly been a pleasure to work with all of you, and it's an honor to to be recognized in this manner, and I really appreciate that. I will miss all of you, but I will see you around town. Don't be surprised if I show up to meetings here and there and other events at the district when things get back to normal. So I won't be far, but it has been a pleasure. I hope that I made some positive impact on moving the district forward, and I look forward to what happens next.
Thank you. We are going to miss you. Anything else you want to add, Jill?
Yeah, well, the district has a gift for Kate, and we'll give that to her at the end. And so I'll let everyone know what that is a little bit later, but it's a little awkward over Zoom, but we do have something for gift that we'll present to her when she's in the office.
Zoom hug.
Okay, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Kate. We do expect to see you at all of these board meetings anyway. All right, let's go ahead and moving on to the open forum for non-agenda items. And this is where we get to hear from our public. So if you would like to address the board and you have a concern that is under our jurisdiction and you'd like to speak with us, we would love to hear what you have to say. And the way you would do that is you would raise your hand by, I believe it's under participants. There's a raise hand button that's in blue. And Nikki will see that and will inform us that someone wants to speak.
And again, this is just a reminder that this is non-agenda items. So if you're joining us for any of the public hearings for final budget, El Dorado disposal, or the taxation rate for our general obligation bond, we'll be taking that public testimony a little bit later.
Thank you. So, Nikki, have we heard? Has anyone raised their hand and would like to speak on a non-agenda item?
I don't have any raised hands.
Okay. Well, then we will move on to our next item, which is the approval of the consent agenda. And this should also be, we need a motion to accept this. Any discussion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I would second that motion.
All right, we have a first and a second. Jill, if you could go through and do a poll vote, please.
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Aston?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
All right, our consent agenda has been adopted 5-0. Moving on to our next item of general business would be item 9, and this is where we will be discussing our approving our fiscal year 2020-21 budget and approve resolution 2020-17, adopting the Cameron Park Community Service District fiscal year 2020-21 budget. So I guess we will go ahead and do we open the public hearing when the board, now before we start our presentation, Jason, or do we wait for public comment to open the public hearing?
You can actually open it now. You just wouldn't be asking for any public comment until the presentation is done.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And Jill, you want to kick us off?
Actually, I'm going to tee it up for Vicki to do this. Vicki?
Ready? Yes. I want to say that the final budget is very similar to the approved preliminary budget. There are not a great deal of significant changes. I can run through those changes with you. Basically, we're still balanced with a little bit left over, about $3,000 left over. Employee costs were actually decreased, and that was because there was an increase in the CalPERS retirement rate, workers' comp costs, and health benefits, but we were able to offset that by eliminating some backup receptionist and also safety coordinator hours and weed abatement part-time hours. We did discuss the weed abatement part-time hours with fire, and they were on board with it. We increased professional services to fund the balance of the solar consultant for the remainder of the contract amount. That was just a pullover from 1920. So we didn't spend all of the contracts, so we had to rebudget it in 2021. We also were able to include a CalPERS pension unfunded liability decrease. That was about $4,800. And we also reduced some of the recreation program instructors. The lighting and landscape districts, they were just adjusted for electricity and water, and mostly very small adjustments. So they were not of relevance either. The special funds, facilities and park reserve increased, expenditures were increased. We had to include the parks master plan contract balance and the energy efficient LED lighting project costs. We also included with those lighting project costs the revenue from the PG&E participation. And we're anticipating that those funds will be reimbursed to the fund from utility savings that will result as we use the LED lighting. Fire and emergency reserve changes included increased expenditures for the energy efficient lighting project costs for Station 89. Kind of the same approach. We will use the savings, the utility savings, to pay back the fund once we realize those utility savings. I also had to rebudget the new fire engine equipment. They weren't able to procure all of the fire engine equipment that was budgeted in 1920, so I had to roll over those costs. I want to give kudos to the fire department. They were awarded a grant for the heart monitors, which was budgeted, and radios, which will be budgeted at the mid-year when more details are available. But they're out there really, really looking for grants. That's probably the gist of it. If you would like me to go through, if you would like me to answer any questions or go through the 3 attachments, I can do that for you. But I'm just not sure how much detail you would like. As I said, it's relatively similar to the preliminary budget that you approved in June.
Thank you, Vicki. Let's go ahead and we'll take questions from the board, and then we will open it up to public comment. So let's hear from our fellow board members.
Well, I'd like to have Vicki go through. Can you hear me? I'd like to have Vicki go through any changes from the last presentation.
Holly, I just summarized the changes that were made.
I mean, that's really all that there are.
There were
significant.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments from our board?
None from mine.
I've vetted this in budget and admin, so my questions were answered there.
I want to thank staff for the hard work that has gone into this. And I see from the numbers, the budget is basically rolled back 5 years, as far as I can tell, for about the equivalent for a 2014-15 budget. And I want to thank staff for presenting a balanced budget. I just have I think it's a small question, but regarding the weed abatement part-time staffing, clearly we are in a continued fire danger in our community. So I just want to better understand what and I'm sure that the fire department in Cameron Park didn't reduce these positions when we really need to reduce our fuel. So could you just help me understand somebody a little bit better how there's a cost savings on those positions?
I think I can help you with that.
Okay.
When I think that they kind of revamped their system, and maybe Callan is with us and maybe he can echo this if I go astray at all. but they really revamped their system. Whereas before they were sending letters out to all of the property owners, and then there was follow-up. I think that they made their system much more efficient. Now everybody gets a postcard, not necessarily a certified letter. I think that they were just able to do more with a more efficient system. And that's really what it comes down to. So the CCI grant is really helping to fund the weed abatement program. So I think that if they felt there was a need for additional staff hours, there was an opportunity to fund that and expand that. But I think that they were very comfortable with the process, the new process they put into place.
At stage with your midcourse per muscle you created. Continue 25.
What?
My bad.
I'm not sure if Mr. Richards was adding comment because I couldn't hear, but Jill, that's
Sorry.
me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, there we go.
This is my first Zoom meeting.
Welcome.
Doing great.
Yeah, what Jill had mentioned is accurate. We used a lot of the CCI grant fund money that kind of blended into that same mission that we're using weed abatement funds in the past for. So it kind of killed two birds with one stone, if you will. And like she said, with the efficiency of the postcards and not having all that certified letter mail out and stuff, was there's savings involved there too. So.
Okay. Thank you. And thanks to the Budget and Admin Committee for all your work too.
I also was on the budget and admin, and Eric and I went through this with a fine tooth comb. And it's funny, Felicity, I asked the same question when that came forward too, making sure that we're not, undercutting anything. So I'm very pleased with this budget as well. And if there's no other further questions, comments from the board, we can open it up to the public. And so if you are out there in Zoom land, and you can find that raise your hand button, Nikki will be able to unmute you and allow you to speak. If we have anybody who would like to address the board regarding our budget.
I don't have any raised hands.
Okay. Must be that balanced budget that we have. Well done, staff. Thank you.
No, I see hands raised. Kaylin?
Yeah, I forgot to add, I know that Vicki had mentioned the cardiac monitors, the grant for that, and also the grant for a lot of the new radio stuff that we were awarded. There are two different grants, and those are two very expensive and also very important pieces of equipment that we do use every day. And those grants that were awarded are going to help us significantly update our radio systems, all our mobile radios and pagers, and then our cardiac monitors for the engine. So that's a huge win for us in Cameron Park.
Yes.
Thanks, Kaylin.
All right, thank you. Holly? Not Holly. Nikki, anyone else you see with a raised hand?
No.
You can't get to your buttons here. Shit. Oh, they can't see me, so my hand's not raised.
Would you like to speak, Ray 1?
Yes, I would.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
About the increase in our trash service, I got the smallest.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
This is, the public comment being taken right now is regarding the budget. The next item will be our garbage service. So is your comment regarding the budget or the garbage service?
The garbage service.
Okay. Well, then if you could please hold your comments till the next item, we'd appreciate it.
I will.
Thank you. Any other, Nikki, anything else?
No.
Okay, so we will bring it back to the board. And is there any motion from the board?
I don't see what
I want to.
I'm sorry, Director Scobie. This is Jason. I might have just missed this, but I didn't actually personally hear that we officially closed the public hearing. If we did, fantastic. If not, I would ask you to do that. I'd ask you to do that.
Okay, then last chance, the public, you can also do a chat message to Nikki if you'd like to speak on this item. You can press the blue hand on the Zoom screen under the participant tab. And hearing nothing from Nikki, we will go ahead and close the public hearing and bringing it back to the board. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget and approve resolution 2017 adopting the Cameron Park Community Services District fiscal year 2021 budget.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first and a second. Could we do a poll vote, please? Jill?
Director Scobie,
Aye.
Director Aston,
Aye.
Director Carlson,
Aye.
Director Wooten,
Aye.
Director Morrison.
Aye.
Fantastic. We now have a budget and a resolution. It passed 5-0. Now we're moving on to likely what everyone's here to talk about, our to approve resolution 2020-18, approving an amendment to the agreement between the Cameron Park Community Services District and Waste Connection of California, Inc., doing business as El Dorado Disposal Services, and establishing rates for the collection of solid waste within the Cameron Park Community Services District. We're going to start this by hearing a presentation from our staff and from EID. And after this presentation, we will be able to take questions from the board, and then we'll open it up to public comment. So we're going to go ahead and open that public hearing now and kick it off to staff.
And I think that Nikki is going to be opening up a presentation slide PowerPoint for us as soon as she can get there. So, but I'm going to go ahead and start. We are bringing a proposed contract amendment and rate adjustments to the board for consideration. The district and El Dorado Disposal initially executed this agreement back in 2008, and it was updated through amendments in 2010 and 2012. The current agreement, the term of that ends in 2023. Staff is recommending approval of a rate adjustment to begin on September 1st, 2020, and that is attachment 10B in that report, and we'll get to that slide here in a few minutes. There are triggers outlined in the agreement between the district and El Dorado Disposal that outlines when rate adjustments can occur, and it's inflation or deflation, fuel surcharges, and extraordinary circumstances, which we'll hear a little bit more about. And El Dorado Disposal, in order to have rate increases approved or considered, they have to meet their performance objectives, and El Dorado Disposal has met or exceeded all of their performance objectives. So, you know, and as you'll hear a little bit later in the PowerPoint, El Dorado Disposal is making very significant capital investments in our community and in the county, which will benefit Cameron Park residents. So with that, we're going to turn it over to the team at El Dorado Disposal. I see Sue Vandeliner, Jeff England, Jeff Stevens, and I think Sarah Vieira is also on a separate photo in your Zoom. Also, El Dorado Disposal is going to take the next couple of slides, and then Greg Stanton is with us as well, and he's going to talk a little bit about some things that are occurring up at the county. So anyway, with that, I'll turn it over to El Dorado Disposal.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. This is Jeff England. I'm the site manager for the hauling company. I'm responsible for drivers, customer service, and our shop here. The first bullet point that I'd like to address is the new recycling facility, the buyback center for Cameron Park. I think most of you are familiar with the challenges and issues that we've faced for many years at the existing location in the Bel Air parking lot area back there. We're very happy and excited to propose a new buyback center for Cameron Park that would be located off Duroc with access from Saratoga. It would be adjacent to Camarado Glass to give you an idea where the location is. This site, as compared to the current location, will be fenced and secured, and will create recycling and other opportunities for the community that we are not able to do at the current facility. We think that this will, we don't think, we know that this will address the illegal dumping and other security issues that we've continually faced at the present location, and that we're really looking forward to having a fenced and secure facility to have our buyback center. I also want to point out an additional service that we'll be able to provide at the new buyback center, which is a return of the roll-off box, the very large debris box that we used to be able to provide at the fire station in Cameron Park, and that for many years allowed residents to bring green waste debris for free. We will be able to do that again at this buyback center. And so that's an add specific to this buyback center, in addition to the other amenities that we'll be able to provide. And we expect that because it will be a better facility, that it will encourage recycling and people being able to take advantage of the California redemption programs that are available by bringing their recycled materials from home directly to us. And then obviously later we'll be happy to answer any questions as it relates to the buyback center. We've got an additional support for the Christmas tree program, and essentially what that means is we're going to be happy to pick up and dispose of all of the Christmas trees that come out of the Cameron Park facility, picked up by the Boy Scouts or brought to us for free, and eliminate that disposal expense for the CSD by taking that and getting it grinded and then disposed of as a recycled material. And we're very happy to do that, as we did last Christmas season for you folks. One of the other amendment items that we have are changes to our existing curbside green waste program. And sorry, the fire safety has already been alluded to this evening. Clearly, all we have to do is step outside and look to the sky and appreciate the critical importance of defensible space and vegetation management. Our belief is that the changes that we'd like to make will greatly enhance residents' ability to properly dispose of their green waste material debris. And what we're specifically seeking to do, in the past, we've been able to do 2 events a year where our trucks roll through during the weeks that during specific weeks that we are servicing green waste there, and pick up green waste that's set out curbside by the residents. And this is obviously in addition to the 2-cart system that we have available for green waste. What we want to do is provide residents with 2 vouchers, one for spring and one for fall. This will enable residents to be able to call and schedule an appointment for us to come and pick up green waste that they set out on their time rather than the schedule that we've had to require folks to live with. We think this will greatly enable people's ability to participate in the program. And what we intend to do is we will add a driver and a truck and essentially create a route and be able to do this throughout the county. And again, specifically hit homes as they call for appointments in Cameron Park. This amendment would also include a change to the voucher system, and also includes that we are able to pick up the green waste only either in bundles or compostable bags. When we've when we are picking up green waste in carts or on the curb in plastic bags, they're trash because we are no longer able to dispose of them or have them recycled as green waste. The people that we send the green waste to won't accept that material as recyclable. And this is critical because green waste is very heavy to help us make our diversion requirements and goals as well. And so really the multiple advantages and opportunities that come with these changes, again, we think will greatly enhance vegetation management as well as our diversion goals specific to green waste. Really, when we tie together both the buyback center opportunity with free green waste drop-off, as well as the 2 annual voucher pickups now, we think that we are really going to be able to help on that front. The other areas?
Yeah, so this is Sue Vandelinder. I'm the Divisional Vice President for Waste Connections and oversee the 2 facilities here in El Dorado County. I wanted to just speak briefly about the material recovery facility and the plans that we have for the renovation of that. The plans for renovating the facility have been underway since 2014. And really the focus was to take a facility that was actually built as a light robotics industrial facility. It was never intended to really be a material recovery facility or transfer station, and build an actual transfer station able to sort construction and demolition material, as well as sort some of the single stream material that comes through the facility. In addition, this renovation allows for better throughput for all residents. We have a large number of Cameron Park residents that actually use a lot of our free services, including our household hazardous waste programs. So all of the recycling that's dropped off here is free. All of the household hazardous waste, including needles, paints, pesticides, batteries, oil filters, mattresses, those are all free services. So there would be an opportunity for customers to utilize that before ever going through a pay station. This renovation also allows for commercial traffic to operate independently of residential traffic, making for a safer campus. And that the intent of this rebuild of the facility is really to facilitate our work here in El Dorado County for Cameron Park and the other jurisdictions for the next 3+ decades. Like I said, that work began in 2014. There were some things that delayed us, which is why we're continuing to have a conversation here sitting in 2020. Certainly COVID had an impact on things, but more importantly, this facility was built on an old lime, I'm going to call it a lime pond, for lack of a better term. But there was a lime plant and a lime pond that met up near the river, or the stream down below us, where there was an old railroad spur, and the lime was moved out based on that railroad back in the 1940s. And unbeknownst to many of us, some of that lime, not from our property, but from an adjacent property, had leached into the creek. And so the State Water Board then began to have conversations with the landowners in this area to ask us to do some additional testing and take a look at what could be done to mitigate and remediate. And so over the course of the last few years, that's what we've done. And we are actually the only landowners in the area who have completely remediated that the lime with a high pH component in this area. So while it delayed the process, I think it was the right thing to do, and we are still on track to have the facility completed, most likely the beginning of 2023, if we don't complete it in 2022. So that's a little history on the MRF. One thing I did want to mention too, we anticipated that the rebuild of the facility would cost somewhere between $8 and $12 million back in 2014. That the cost of that facility has risen dramatically. We are sitting right now at 25 million. So Waste Connections Eldorado Disposal had made a decision back in 2014 that we were going to absorb that $8 to $12 million without any change to any rates. You know, we appreciate the opportunity of being able to do business here. Given the change in the cost structure, we needed to come back before all jurisdictions that utilize the facility and request support with regard to the additional $12 million plus that will be needed to build a facility that will be able to handle all materials from the jurisdictions on the Western Slope for the number of years we have ahead of us to come. So I just wanted to mention that. I guess I'll say one more thing, and that has to do with the new buyback center in Cameron Park. I have been a part of that project. Shoot, we've been trying to site a new facility, I think, for a decade. Initially, there was discussion that we would potentially be able to use a piece of land that the CSD owned. That wasn't conducive from a traffic flow perspective. There was some other conversation about maybe there would be, you know, some other land available to us. So we've looked at a number of different pieces of property. The bottom line is we will be funding this ourselves. We will be funding the construction. We met with the design review committee for Cameron Park. We took all of their, everything that they had to say and the things that they wanted to see in terms of landscape and design. And we are incorporating that into the plan, and we will be funding that. We will also be funding the ongoing lease payment for that facility as well.
Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. I'm Jeff Stevens. I'm the controller here with Eldorado Disposal. And so what we're looking at here is our proposed rate adjustment pricing grid, which I'm sure is going to create a lot of excitement out there. I wanted to just briefly go over the different components of our rate request. So, excuse me, the first component is the CPI adjustment. That's our normal, you know, July 1st CPI related adjustment that we're eligible for. And this year we are eligible for 3.27%. The next piece of that is the recycle related adjustment. And our request here is for 32 cents a month per home and 1.1% for commercial customers. And then finally, our third component is the MRF rebuild adjustment related to the 12 to 13 million above the first 8 to 12 million that we committed to, as Sue alluded to, and that would be 3.23% for all customers. A couple things I wanted to point out just to add perspective to these rate increases. For the 64 gallon service, which is the most popular residential service level in Cameron Park, this rate change of $2.24 equates to 52 cents per pickup. In addition, for the commercial rate change of 3 yards, 1 time a week, our price increase request equates to an increase of $1.75 per yard. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Stanton, and he'll cover the next slide.
Good evening, board. Greg Stanton, Director of Environmental Management. After hearing Eldorado Disposal's presentation, I have to recognize that nobody likes an increase to rates, especially during a pandemic. And also just to let you know that this portion of the presentation is not up for your consideration tonight. As the slide says, there will be a public hearing on August 25th. It's actually a continuation of a hearing that was held on August 4th. And the proposal is to increase the surcharge on solid waste that goes through the MRF that is not diverted or recycled in any way, but is buried in a landfill. This surcharge was established with the first contract with the owners, the original owners of Eldorado Disposal, the Scariots and DeWolfs, and it was established at $2.70 a yard. That was back in, I want to say, the early 1990s or so. Don't quote me on the date, but it has not increased since that time. And so I want to start with the bottom of this slide and move up. And so some of the reasons for the county's request to increase the surcharge, which by the way, would result in about, I think, a 2.46% increase to Cameron Park rates, is the Union Mine landfill. And so the Union Mine landfill has been around, started as an illegal dump back in the, well, it was an actual active mine back in the 40s and 50s, and then became an illegal dump, and then became a permitted site for the County of El Dorado back in the late 60s, early 70s. And it is the place that all waste was taken to on the western slope up until 1996. There is a liability, I'm afraid to say, with having a landfill. And that liability is that, number one, you own it for life, pretty much. And number two, there is an open cell currently at the landfill that is used for on-site purposes. We do not accept waste from outside. And that closure of that portion of the landfill is fully funded at about $2.7 million. We also, though, have to provide to the state a 30-year timeline, an outgoing pledge of revenue to maintain that site. And that pledge of revenue, or that financial obligation, runs right around $16.3 million at this time. The current revenue stream to fund the Union Mine landfill operations is not sufficient to ensure the financial liability associated with maintaining that site for the next 30 years. And by the way, I'm going to condense this down significantly because there's multiple pages of an agenda item for the Board of Supervisors. So I'll take questions afterwards, but I'm going to try and shorten this just to hit the high points. The second from the bottom bullet point, the countywide litter abatement program and illegal dumping abatement. The county provides those services within Cameron Park and throughout the western slope. And those services include the litter pickup, as well as sign complaints, by the way, but the litter pickup on major thoroughfares through Cameron Park, such as Cambridge, Cameron Park Drive, Green Valley, other areas that are identified. We do that on a proactive basis. However, we've not been able to do as much as we would like for a couple of reasons. One, because of the funding shortfall, I have 2 full-time staff for this purpose. And one of those positions I've held vacant for several years while we work through the funding aspects, and have filled it with a seasonal staff person only. Due to COVID, our inmate program has been shut down now for, even before COVID, for multiple months. And that inmate program is whereby we hire a work program officer to supervise inmates to pick up litter on the county roadways. And then we respond to illegal dumping complaints as well as solid waste complaints on private property within the CSD. And as I mentioned, those pesky sign complaints that we respond to within the CSD. In terms of solid waste diversion programs, that's kind of combined with the first bullet point, the regulatory compliance. We implement those programs county-wide, including the CSD. Those include grants, and one example of that grant program would be the use of city-county payment program funds to provide for the contract with Eco Hero, which was a consultant or a company that provided recycling presentations to K through 6 schools throughout the county, including Cameron Park. Blue Oak is an example of one of those presentations that took place several months ago, actually last fall before COVID hit. But the regulatory compliance, because El Dorado County is the reporting jurisdiction and are responsible to CalRecycle, we not only do the compliance reporting for Cameron Park, but we also assist El Dorado Disposal with compliance. An example of that is Assembly Bill 1826, which encompassed not only businesses, but multifamily dwellings for establishing green waste diversion and containers. And the county's staff was involved in outreach to those multifamily units in partnership with El Dorado Disposal to ensure that either they were exempt or that they came online and were compliant. And so the ask that will be coming before the board, which ultimately would affect Cameron Park, is to increase the per ton surcharge from its existing rate of $2.70 a ton to $10.80 per ton, which is a 2.46% increase in rates, as I mentioned earlier, which translates, and I won't be exact here, but Jeff Stevens can probably help, to approximately 84 cents or so per month, or 19 cents per pickup. And that's on a 64-gallon cart rate, sorry.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, everyone. Jill, is there anyone else? Eric, were you going to speak about this?
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, I just wanted to bring before both the board and the public just the recognition that on the Budget and Admin Committee level, we've been discussing this for over 6 months now. EDD brought this to us back February, March. We asked for some other reports to understand both the justification for the various rate increases, as well as comparative rates with other districts and communities in our area, just to understand the impact on this. And EDD has been wonderful in coming back a number of times with specifics and details, as well as percentages across consumer and residential. So in bringing this to the board today, just wanted you to understand we've been talking about this for quite a while. We recognize, as has been stated, the increase is nobody wants an increase in, and we see that in other utilities. But when you look at the actual dollar amount and per person, as well as the justification for each one of these pieces, that's why we felt comfortable bringing it to the board today.
Thank you, Eric. So at this point in time, we will ask our directors if they have any questions regarding this presentation before we open it up for public comment. So any of our other board members have any questions?
This is Felicity. I have kind of more of a comment than a question, but if there's something I've misunderstood, I'm definitely open to hearing that. I've not had the benefit of being in the Budget and Admin Committee and learning the ins and outs. So I want to say I'm grateful for waste collection. I've spent time in other parts of the world where there is not waste collection, and I don't take it for granted. So I'm very grateful for the professional, timely, etc. waste collection that we have in Cameron Park. I'm grateful for the remediation of the historic leach. I don't know if this is necessarily relevant, but I think it kind of is. I just like to keep in mind that Waste Connections is a shareholder. The holding company, it's headquartered in Texas. If we go ahead and agree to approve this change in the contract, we'll have our board president will sign it, and so will the president or the CEO of Waste Connections. He's based in Texas. Honestly, I don't know if this is relevant, and I can't even verify this figure because it's from the internet, but he may be worth $17 million. I'm impressed with Waste Connections that they've just announced that they're instituting quarterly dividends to shareholders, quarterly cash dividends. As we know, this is a rough economic time for a lot of middle America, and yet Waste Connections has enough cash available that they're able to institute kind of a rare quarterly dividend. And my reading of the contract is that it's section 18, subsection H, recycling revenues, is that the contractor is entitled and has been to retain all revenues from the sale of recyclable materials received by the contractor from its customers. So for the whole period that recycling was profitable and recyclable items could be sold to China, Waste Connections was able to keep all those profits. But now that it's become that you can't sell these our recycling to China, it's become expensive to actually recycle. I feel that we as middle America and as the residents of Cameron Park are being asked to accept that as justification to support a rate increase, but we didn't get to keep any of the profits when recycling was profitable. So I feel like there was a bit of there's not a kind of fairness of who gets the profits when it's profitable, but then who has to pay when it's not profitable. There's not a risk reward balance there like I think there should be. That's all I want to say. I don't mean to come across, and I apologize if I do, as bashing a really solid local company that does support our community. I do appreciate it. I just want to kind of put some of these things that to my mind are perspective, and that is the shareholders getting cash dividends at a time that we're being asked to raise our rates, and Cameron Park being asked to support the cost to recycle when we weren't able to get some of the benefit of selling the recycling. So if there's something I've misunderstood, I'm all ears, but those are my comments. So thank you.
I have a question, Director Morrison. Jeff, can you tell me what was the CPI equivalent this year?
The CPI as related to our request?
Yeah, so let's just go with the 64-gallon can. The increase is $2.24. What's the CPI portion of that?
Yeah, how much is that? We needed to have that on the slide.
I think it was 3.27.
96 cents.
96 cents. So if I could direct the board to understand that part of this is the allowable increase. I'm sorry, 94 cents?
96.
96 cents. So 96 cents of the 224, right? On just the 64 gallon, which you said is the average, most popular?
You're correct.
Most popular size. So we've got $1. You're increasing us an additional $1.28 above and beyond the CPI.
That's correct.
On the 64 gallon.
Yes.
And that is a month.
That is per month.
Per month, because we were billed bi-monthly. So I'd just like to bring that to the board's attention to understand that we are getting our donation, and just to remind the board of the service levels that El Dorado Disposal Waste Connections provides to the community. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from our board members?
Me.
All right, let's see. Jill, did you want to add anything to that before we open it up to the public?
I just wanted to acknowledge on the first slide, which is not up there now, but I just wanted to acknowledge that the contract extension is proposed to be to 2033. I think the second slide had it cited as 2023. So just wanted, the report is correct. So also, wasn't sure, does Eldorado Disposal, did you want to have any other comments or clarification before we send it out to public testimony?
Well, I guess just to address the comment that was made about the recycling and that component of, you know, when the markets were good versus now. And we talked about this a little bit last year as well, because we've seen a downturn in the markets really over the last 5 years. You know, China has implemented different components to that, I would say, over the last 5 years. One of the things that I'd like to point out is that we've never looked backward. So, you know, generally speaking, we're sitting a year or 2 years or 3 years after the fact having a conversation with you about we're not seeing the market come back. There's been changes in regulation, et cetera, before we come before you to talk about what things are looking like on a go forward basis. So I did want to point that out. I think another thing to mention with regard to recycling specifically is that when we did receive those revenues and netted against the, you know, there's a cost to process. So yes, there are revenues that are associated with those commodities, but there's a tremendous cost to process those materials, even when the revenues were better. The benefit of that cost, revenue versus cost, went to cover programs and went to cover programs in the community, servicing recycling at a reduced cost, really a significantly reduced cost when you looked at it on the commercial side several years ago, but even on the residential side, and then allowing for free drop-off of recycling at our buyback center. And at the buyback center, we pay redemption value to the customers that use that facility. And I also would like to remind the board that that buyback center is actually a cost center for us. It is not a profit center for us. It's something that we do as a benefit to the community. And you may recall a few years ago, most of the buyback centers in the state closed. There just wasn't enough value in it for them to remain open. We obviously chose to remain open because we saw it as a valuable component to the services that we offer in Cameron Park. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to mention on the recycling front. We are very honored to provide service in Cameron Park. We have been a part of the community for many, many years, and we appreciate the opportunity to service you. So, and provide additional services, as Jeff alluded to. You know, every year we try to come before you with additional services that we can offer to either further enhance recycling, enhance the diversion out of the landfill, enhance services to customers, communication strategies, public education. So those are things that we believe that we bring to the table that that make us somewhat unique, and we look forward to doing that for many years to come for you. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to make sure is clear is that what we're looking at now is a rate increase due to our regular CPI, recycling, and the MRF. The component that Greg Stanton addressed, because that has not been passed by the county yet, is not included in these rates. Is that correct?
That's correct, Monique.
Okay, thank you. All right, and with no other discussion from the board, we can take it out to the, yes? Without any other discussion from the board, questions from the board, we will take it out to the public. And this is, we're gonna try to let everyone speak and have their 3 minutes. And we'll do our best to make sure that you're acknowledged. The 2 ways that you can let us know you'd like to speak is by pressing the participants button, and there's a little blue hand at the bottom. Also, you could text directly Nikki, who is on here. Nikki, are you just Nikki, or are you?
I think Nikki is admin.
Yeah, Nikki Garrison, or admin, her name that shows up there. And you can text her directly and let her know you would like to speak. And we will go slow. We really want to hear from everyone. So let's go ahead, and Nikki will be unmuting you and allowing you to speak. And then when your 3 minutes are up, she will let you know that your 3 minutes are up, and then that will allow the next person to speak. So that's how we're going to proceed. And let's see, Nikki, do we have anyone who'd like to speak? Nikki, you are muted.
I apologize. RX-Ray 1 was first.
So we'll unmute him, please.
Go ahead.
RX-Ray 1, you have your time.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, we're mandated for trash service here in Cameron Park. When I left it back in 2004, we weren't mandated yet. Came back, returned, bought another house here, retired here. As seniors in the neighborhood, I got the smallest trash can possible, and I can't even fill it up every 2 weeks, let alone to recycle. There's no cost savings for us seniors to be able to reduce our rates, even by a 5 monthly pickup, because we can't fill the service up. Yet everyone's mandated to pay, and I've watched other people in units turn around and share one trash can between 5 seniors to make it fill up, for a week. I'd like to see some cost savings for that part, but I even went on vacation for 3 weeks, notified the trash service, and they said, oh, no, you're mandated. We can't not pick your trash up. I said, I'm not going to be here to put it out. I found that really ridiculous. So I paid $50 some odd that month for no trash service because I wasn't here. And I'd like to hear from the disposal board why they can't do something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any other comments?
No, that's it.
Okay. At the end of this, I'll have them answer that question when we've taken all public testimony.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And who is next?
Why would we wait for an answer?
Well, what does the board want to do? Do you guys want to have a more discussion type forum here, or would you like to have all the answers once we've collected?
Well, it would seem that our representatives might be able to answer some people's questions by answering people as they come along. Why would we have all the questions asked at once? That doesn't make sense. That's not how public testimony works.
Well,
it does.
Different places, but we can make a choice, I think. Director Scobie, you want to ask the board if we would be okay just to address the questions as they come in?
Yes, I thought I had. I'm sorry. Okay. Would the board like to take the questions as they arise, or would you like to have them all answered at the end?
We might find some efficiency in case some folks have the same question, if their question is answered by somebody else.
Yeah.
So it would be a good idea to do that as it comes up.
Okay.
All
Felissa,
right,
you
let's
have-
do it.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good either way. But yeah, maybe El Dorado Disposal can answer some questions that other people are pending. So.
Okay, great. Then, all right, El Dorado Disposal, could you address RX Ray 1's question?
This is Sue Vandelinder. I'll take a stab. So for a number of years, I want to say close to 10 at least, we held the rate flat for the 35-gallon senior rate. We did that, actually, we recommended it, you adopted it. And we did that specifically because we wanted to make sure that we had the lowest rate possible for a senior who might be on a fixed income, who didn't generate a lot of material. So the 35-gallon rate currently for the senior is $19.17. That rate would be moving to $20.74 as part of this increase. There was a decision made by your board to not hold that rate flat any longer because it's about $8 less than the standard 35-gallon rate. So there was direction provided to us to increase that rate commensurate with the other rates. But that is substantially less. I have had experience with 20-gallon carts in other areas, and they're very problematic. They blow over, they get knocked over, they get dumped in the trash truck. They're very problematic. There's also a law in California, there's a state law that says that residential trash and commercial trash will be picked up every 7 days. So the county follows the state law, the CSD follows the state law, and we follow the state law. With regard to vacation hold, that was, I would call that a policy decision by your board. When this agreement was first adopted, and that was so that everyone paid their fair share. Certainly there have been exceptions made over time. There were exceptions made for folks that had some kind of a failure in their home. There were a lot of exceptions made when there were foreclosures and we went through, a difficult period of time for everyone, right, financially back in the recession. So certainly along the way, there have been exceptions made by us with your permission. But this was a policy decision really when rates were adopted initially by your board. And it's consistent with what we see in other like jurisdictions where there is mandatory service.
Great, thank you. And our next
component to his question about suspending rates during vacation times.
What?
There was another component to his question.
Yes, Director Morrison. So maybe I wasn't clear in covering that. That was a policy decision that was made by your board at the inception of this agreement. Certainly that's something that you could take up again if you chose to. I do see that sort of policy, which is everyone pays their fair share, if they're on vacation or they're not. I see that in similar contracts, but that is up to that can come back and be a board discussion for an amendment to the agreement if you choose that you want to look at something alternatively.
Thank you. Okay, Nikki, I think we have some other people who'd like to speak.
We do. The next hand I saw was Tim Israel. Go ahead, you're unmuted.
All right, thank you, directors. I would like to just say that the Waste Connections provides great service to me. I've never had a problem in the 18, 19 years I've lived in Cameron Park. So I really appreciate the work they do, and our rates have traditionally been very reasonable. I also would like to say that the rates proposed in this change seem reasonable to me, and I'm knowledgeable about the industry, and I think it's uh, in line with other jurisdictions in our area. I would like to make a comment on the Placerville MRF. The remediation of the soil there, that is a pre-existing condition. It has nothing to do with El Dorado County's collection of solid waste and the disposal of that waste. And a billion-dollar company like Waste Connections certainly can afford the $4 million it will take to remediate that site and absorb that in their bottom line, not ours. They should have done the due diligence back in the day when they bought El Dorado Disposal. More importantly, I'd like to talk about organics. I have not heard one mention of 1383 and the impacts that is going to have on our rates. And for the folks out there that don't know what SB 1383 is, it's a law that was passed several years ago. And there are new regulations that are going to require weekly collection of your organic material. That's going to double the frequency that El Dorado Disposal has to come and pick up your green waste bin, basically. And that is going to be a significant cost to the ratepayer. So I would ask that El Dorado Disposal discuss that with us and give us some indication of what the magnitude of the increase in the rate is going to be. Because I believe it is going to be significant, far more than what you are discussing tonight. And with that said, I believe it is inappropriate to extend their contract at this point until there is clarity on, one, what the county is going to charge, which, by the way, I think is pretty reasonable. 80 cents a month is nothing for what Greg Stanton's group does for us. But without transparency on what's going to happen with 1383, this is a state mandated program that will start January 1st, 2022. And the increase is going to be huge.
Time is up.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. I believe there's two questions in there for El Dorado Disposal regarding the mitigation of the MRF and the addressing of the organics.
So this is Sue. I'll try and tackle those. Thank you, Tim. I'll start with the lime remediation. Obviously, there was knowledge of there being lime on the property at the time of the acquisition. What I will tell you is that the what's changed over time is how that lime was, would be dealt with the State Water Board and with the Department of Fish and Game, with the there were a number of elements that changed, which changed the way that this lime would be handled, or needed to be handled, or could be handled. And I will also tell you that Waste Connections stepped up in the very beginning of this rebuild, which is something actually that the county as a whole had asked us to undertake, and said, that first 8 to 12 million, which is 12 million, okay, will be covered, we said, will be covered by Waste Connections, by El Dorado Disposal, without any impact to the ratepayer. So I just want to reiterate that. There have been a number of changes, a number of dynamic changes with regard to lime. And we actually had a third-party consultant study completed by Crow LLC, which is part of the board packet, where Crow states, and I'll quote it. They did a thorough analysis of the overage in the cost. Their analysis, based on the estimates, the plans, and the Lyme remediation support, that the transfer station and MRF facility costs are expected to exceed the high end of the original commitment by about $13.6 million at this time. Further, they said Crow reviewed unit costs included in the detailed cost estimate against construction cost averages. In general, we found that most of the significant facility unit costs fell within the expected unit cost range of similar construction projects. With regard to your second comment, what I'd like to talk about with Senate Bill 1383, we are intimately familiar with that Senate bill. We do meet monthly with the general manager of the CSD, and we have conversations about this topic along with AB 341 and many others. The purpose of tonight's meeting wasn't to educate the public on 1383, nor was it to request a rate change with regard to 1383, because we believe that just like we did when we were dealing with mandatory food waste collection in the commercial areas, we wanted to make sure that we were piloting a few different ideas first so that we could get a good idea of what the cost would be and what we might be able to do to mitigate that cost for the residents in Cameron Park. You know, it's very important to us that we develop a program that fits Cameron Park instead of it being a one-size-fits-all type program, which may be overkill for Cameron Park. Certainly, I have seen in multiple jurisdictions around California, rates already increased for programs that aren't working. So the intent is we will come back before this board, we will come back before the public, and over the course of the next 12 months, you have my commitment that we will be coming back and having conversations about what 1383 entails and how we're going to move forward with, you know, with several ideas to pilot to then figure out which one fits best for Cameron Park to be able to initiate and what the cost component looks like as it relates to those various programs.
Great, thank you very much. Nikki, is there someone else who'd like to speak?
Yes, the next hand raised I saw was owner, identified as owner. If you would like to speak.
Yes. I just have a couple of questions. Or was there an RFP done for this contract? And was there a request for a proposal done to get a bid from other vendors as well on this contract? No answer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that do you have any further questions?
Well, I would, based on your answer, or I can just go ahead and say, if there wasn't an RFP done, why not? And without an RFP, we are not able to know if we're getting the true value out of a contract. And doing RFPs help keep the current vendor honest? And if you didn't do an RFP, what authority did you have to single source the contract? And one more thing, I noticed that in the Summer Spectacular, they're donating $14,500, and I think you should tie that also to the CPI annually. And now I'm done.
Great, thank you. In fact, your question was one that I had asked as well. So I think El Dorado Disposal has a answer regarding that independent study that was done.
So maybe I can chip in here a little bit, and then if I go astray, because really we got this information from Greg Stanton, who works for environmental management at the county. Our budget and admin committee did explore that question regarding competitively bidding the contract. The district does have a habit of, has a policy about bidding service contracts. Generally, they're for services that we pay for. There is not a policy for us to competitively bid franchise agreements, which this is a franchise agreement. As we understand it, prior to our current board and prior to my tenure with the district, back about 2008, 2009, 2010, the county did ask for a third-party consultant to review services provided by El Dorado Disposal and cost for those services. And the question at the time, because it's not just Cameron Park that has a contract with El Dorado's Disposal, it's also El Dorado Hills and El Dorado County. And there's a synergistic approach because all of these jurisdictions have this contract. It's kind of like we all work together with El Dorado Disposal. And so collectively, El Dorado County asked the question to a third-party consultant back in 2010 timeframe, should we competitively bid this franchise agreement, or should we continue services with El Dorado Disposal? Are they doing a good job, and are they charging a fair price? And the third-party consultant came back and said, would be in your best interest to continue a contract with El Dorado Disposal. So hence, we have a contract now that goes to, will term out in 2023. When we talked about whether or not to extend this contract another 10 years, there was two things that kind of came into play for the Budget and Admin Committee and for staff. And it was one, the recycling center, which is El Dorado Disposal has already started that project and would like to complete that project. So that's an investment in our community. And also the investment that they're taking right now at the MRF. And so we felt as though the El Dorado Disposal needed to amortize those capital investments in our community. So a 10-year contract extension made sense to us. But there was conversation about the need to either competitively bid this or perhaps get a third-party consultant in again to say, you know, it's kind of like what the district is doing right now with a solar project. You have an outside expert come in and say, okay, is what I'm doing right, or do I need to change it? And so, you know, I think that there was some conversation about perhaps competitively bidding this, or at least looking to verify that their services and their rates are appropriate when this does come back to contract in about 10 years. So did I answer any questions? Did I answer your question in El Dorado Disposal, or Greg, did I capture everything there?
Hi, this is Greg. I thought you summarized that very well.
And I see a thumbs up from Susan.
Okay, thank you. A next person who would like to speak, Nikki.
Debbie. If you'd like to speak now.
Hi, I don't have any questions or anything. I just would like to say that I've been a customer of El Dorado Disposals for over 20 years and never have had any issues. I am excited to hear about the new recycling center that will be opening with the aspects of having a place for us to bring our extra yard waste. Right now, some of us Cameron Park residents have to bring it down to El Dorado Hills since we no longer have it at the fire department down there in Cameron Park. I understand a lot of us are, it's hard with all the rate increase because of where we are at this time in this stage of life right now. But I do agree that a lot of us don't understand. We sit here and we watch them come and pick up our garbage and take it away. And a lot of us don't understand the costs or what happens with it after that. So basically, I have no issues with the rate increases, and I just want to thank El Dorado Disposal for being a great company and also for how much they are so involved with our community. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you, Debbie. And Nikki, anyone else like to speak?
I see Barbara has her hand raised. Oh, sorry.
Barb,
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, of course, I think the world of El Dorado Savings, and especially when this company took over El Dorado Savings, they kept their identity in this county, which is very important to me as a longtime resident. I think I might have mentioned before that my granddaughter, her grandfather on her dad's side was an original employee for Ozzie Scariot. So it's very important to me that they kept the recognition of the name. And I think they give great service. And they have, they do so much for this community. I dare say they do as much for the other franchise areas too. So I know it's hard with the rate increase for a senior citizen and for others during this pandemic, but it is what it is. There's so many laws and regulations tied into things. I don't think everybody truly understands what drives the rate increases. So I'm all for this. I'm all for a 10-year contract so we don't have to revisit it and take time up year after year when there's more important things to be talking about. Thank you. Great job, you guys.
thank you, Barbara. And Nikki, anyone else?
Owner has his hand raised again. Do you want to let him speak?
That's up to the board. Our policy is to allow someone to speak only once. How does the board want to handle this?
Well, I think that the citizen has the right to have a follow-up to the question that he asked.
Felicity, what do you think?
Yeah, I would like to hear from owner again. I just want to make sure that if anybody else has their hand up that hasn't spoken yet, that we hear from them.
Okay, let's go ahead and ask Nikki if there's anyone other than owner with their hand up.
There is not.
I'll chime in here before we ask owner, just to remind the board that we've bumped up against this a couple of times. And I think under a COVID umbrella, because this communication is a little more complicated, I'm okay with this. But before I was even on the board and a part of the public speaking at a meeting, I was hand slapped asking for another question after my time was up. And that's not to be a tit for tat, as much to remind the board we've tried to maintain a consistent, everybody gets one opportunity. But in light of our communication challenges, I'm happy to let owner ask a follow-up question.
And I would like to point out that if we do allow owner to speak again, we need to allow everyone to speak again. It wouldn't be fair just to have.
Oh, of course.
So if there is a motion to allow everyone a chance to speak again, or whatever the pleasure of the board, let's see how you'd like to proceed.
Excuse me? Will this still be a 3-minute thing?
That's a good point, Ellie. We could change that from 3 minutes to 1 or 2 or make it 10. It's up to us on how we'd like to approach this.
I move to allow any resident in our meeting to ask as many questions as they'd like on this contract for as long as they need to have their questions answered.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Seems that it's just a follow-up question.
There's no second, so the motion fails. Is there another motion?
I'd like to make a motion in light of COVID communication challenges to allow the public to ask a follow-up question with a 1-minute time limit.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, could we have a poll vote, please, Jill?
Director Scobie,
Aye.
Director Easton,
Aye.
Director Wooten,
Aye.
Director Carlson,
Aye.
Director Morrison.
Aye.
Okay,
Jesus
so
Christ.
everyone gets to address, if they have any further questions, we'd love to hear from you. You have 1 minute to pose your question. And let's go ahead and start with owner.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mentioned the summer spectacular and there was no response regarding that. But I sincerely believe that the vendor should be tied to the CPI in their payment. It just seems fair. You're talking 10 years out, 14,500 is going to do less than what it is going to do today. And we
Okay,
should
thanks.
at least try to be equal in this.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
That's it? Okay. Do we, let's see, what's the best way to handle that? Do we want to do that as a board discussion? Jill, can you help me out with this?
I think that will come back to us when we do our board discussion after we close public comment.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so after we close public comment, we can address that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Nikki, anyone else want to ask another question?
Our X-ray 1 has his hand raised again. Go ahead, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you very much again. You did mention that you might consider something about the senior trash service and keeping the rates down. I know that you've got plenty of collection places, but you know, we're 2 people here and that's it, just like a lot of households or single households for seniors. So I would really hope that you would have some kind of policy get out for that, and we go away and with our families and stuff like that and see them, because we don't know when we're going to be kicking the bucket. So I'd appreciate any consideration you could do for the seniors in the Cameron Park area.
Thank you, RX Ray 1. We can also talk about that if you'd like to after we close public comment. Is there anyone else, Nikki, who would like to ask a question again?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, no other hands raised? Then we will close public comment. And let's go ahead and have, Eric, you suggested that we discuss these items after we close public comment. So what would you like to say?
Oh, it wasn't as I had something to say as much as we could address that. That's a board discussion. He's making a proposal, so rather than answering a question. But if you're wanting to talk about owner's suggestion on the CPI tied to the 1455 donation, I understand the comment and the idea that Eldorado Disposal would then increase that over time. I think what we're looking at though is this is a donation. It's a donation, it's not a fee. And to tie it to a contract takes away, you know, if businesses donate to a cause or something, they don't tie their donation to fees as such. It's a donation based on both the company's ability and their desire to support. So I'd be hesitant to tie a donation. Fees are a different thing. That's a service, but this is a donation from the company. So I'd be interested to hear what the other board members have to say.
This is Felicity, and yeah, I think owner, I think that's a really interesting point that you make. And I'm just flipping through the contract documents because I do remember somewhere it talks about the $14,000 500 donation, which of course is appreciated. But so El Dorado Disposal, I guess my question is that part of the contract? I can't find it. If it's part of the contract, I'm interested in perhaps tying it to a CPI increase. I think that kind of, I understand the logic there. If it's not part of the contract, then I think that's not something that we have any control over. So thank you.
Could Jill or El Dorado Disposal, I believe it's in the contract. Can you address that?
Let me see if I can find it in the contract. But, you know, I think that every year our events change, the district's needs change for programming. This is a perfect example of when Summer Spectacular didn't happen. And so I think that having flexibility to work with businesses, whether it's a vendor such as El Dorado Disposal or a local businessman, on what they're able to give and for what. I think having some flexibility in that, whether it goes up or down, is great. I think that tying it to CPI, I don't know that special event costs go up the same as other things, other costs in the other costs for services. And special events can change. I mean, if there is to keep tickets low and to make a great event, we sometimes will make program changes where the event doesn't cost as much. So I think I'm a little uncomfortable. I see Susan's head's down. Maybe she's looking for it in the contract. But tying a CPI, I mean, a CPI increase to that. So
I think that I kind of tend to agree with Eric that it's a donation and shouldn't be tied to CPI just because it's in the contract or not in the contract. El Dorado Disposal is always welcome to donate more than $14,000. We'll always be happy to accept that and put that to good use. But I don't think that tying it to the CPI is something that we need to do.
If I could just speak again, there's also another part of me that's even a little bit uncomfortable actually accepting any donation from a contractor. I think it's got the potential to change our objectivity in selecting contracts. So there's part of me that's a little uncomfortable with even accepting that 14.5, but I appreciate the discussion.
Thank you. Any other comments from either Ellie or Holly regarding these issues?
I tend to go along with what Eric had to say on this issue.
And Holly, any input?
No.
No? Okay, so any further board discussion? Do we have a motion?
Well, I think that there were a couple of other items brought up by the public that the board should at least discuss, if not bring up at another time, one particularly being the senior rate. And I recognize our community member, I'm trying to remember.
RX Ray 1.
RX Ray 1, yes, who brought that up. And I wanted the community to understand that we have talked about that in Budget and Admin too in our processes, trying to take care of all the different constituents in our community and recognize we're all carrying this right now. And for a number of years, the senior rate has not gone up or has gone up minimally in comparison to the others. And so in the past, the board has honored that. And in this case, the rate is, comparatively speaking, small. Not that we want to increase, but CPI is part of the contract. We recognize the justification for the other piece. I think it's worth recognizing in the rationale of it that Eldorado Disposal has indicated there are times they try to make exceptions in extenuating circumstances, particularly back in '08 and economic downturn. But regardless of whether we put out our trash or not, in this case, the service costs don't change. The truck still drives by, whether it has to take the extra 10 seconds to stop or not, doesn't really affect what it costs to have the service and the systems in place. So while I too, Ray X, would love to not have to pay when I go on vacation, like you would say with a newspaper subscription that doesn't get delivered. In this case, this is a system that doesn't go away. And I would be concerned about creating that kind of a system where people could opt in and opt out, because that then changes the rate structure and the consideration for everybody at that point.
That's correct.
Then they have to factor that in. And while that's possible, I'm just unsure of the impact of that. So I just wanted to put that out there as we consider that too, because I want to acknowledge that this is hard and we don't want to increase it any at all, even though it's a small increase for seniors or anybody at that point.
So I have a question. So Eldorado Disposal, if somebody is like vacant and they're leaving for 6 months and going, do you typically not charge them if they call in and say, I'm going to be gone for 6 months, or do they still get charged? I mean,
I would tell you, Director Scobie, that is on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, if somebody was going to be gone for 6 months because they were taking a trip around the world or something like that, right? They would still be charged for service. If they've moved out of their home, then the home is vacant. That's a different story. Okay, then we're talking to that customer. We're trying to understand what's happening. Are they leaving because there's an issue with the home? Is it a hardship? What's happening? And then we address those on a case-by-case basis. But it's generally speaking either some type of a hardship, or there's, they've had something happen and they need some help. And then we address that with them.
great. Thank you. It does seem to me if someone's taking a 3-week vacation or whatever, shouldn't be, it's really hard to put in that type of process to refund that type. And I agree with Eric stating that it kind of sets up a opt-in, opt-out type of situation that would not be
acceptable.
And the other part of that that we talked about, Director Scobie, is yes, because we asked the question too, because there are smaller size. Is there a different way to do this? Because I don't fill up my 32-gallon waste ever, or at least very often besides Christmas. Is there a better way to do that where we could have an even lower rate? And then that gets into size and efficiency, and like our partners at Eldorado Disposal talked about, the smaller you go, the more likely it is to get knocked over, the harder it is to pick up, the more fragile are the containers. So there's a lot of other considerations that go into size and selection and just the efficiency of the process. So we vetted those questions too in our process, trying to look for the best value.
Thank you, Eric. Well stated. All right, with that, if there's no further discussion from the board, oh, go ahead, Felicity.
Thanks. I just wanted to acknowledge what Mr. Israel said about the consideration of the 10-year extension. It does make me uncomfortable as well, given the unknowns of organics. I know that it should be resolved soon, but we still are waiting to hear from what the decision's going to be at the county. But I am just not. I'm not really comfortable granting a 10-year extension at this point, given the uncertainties of organics and so many other things. So I just want to acknowledge the member of the public's comment and my agreement with that. Thank you.
What would you recommend, year to year or a shorter term?
Are you asking me, Holly?
Yes.
Yeah. I would recommend continuing with this current contract end date that's already in place.
Until a resolution.
Well, the current contract, my understanding is it's until 2023. So theoretically, that's 3 more years. And I understand I don't know the ins and the outs and the details in the background. I acknowledge that, but I just am, I'm just not really excited about adding another 10 years, kind of 3 years in advance, when there's so many unknowns that can happen in the next 2 or
just to throw a couple of things out there for full disclosure knowledge. One, we have been talking about organics, and I think organics has been talking about at the county EDSWAC meeting, so it's being discussed on a regional level, but also in the budget and admin committee when we started this conversation back in, sorry, there goes my light again. When we started this conversation back in February, March timeframe, where we offered up some of our neighborhoods for pilot programs so that we could figure out the right fit for organic recycling. So I think that El Dorado Disposal liked those ideas of having some pilot neighborhoods and to figure out what would be the right program. The other thing that I would tell you, and I don't mean to hold anybody hostage with this, but I want to recognize that there is a recycling center that El Dorado Disposal is moving ahead with. And so I'm just not sure if that is something that they could continue with if we didn't extend the contract. And so I'm just putting that out there just in all fairness to everybody, not to hold anything hostage, but just to say that that was one of the elements, I believe, of the 10-year extension to amortize those costs.
So if I can clarify in my mind, that recycling facility, am I right? Is it like the recycling that I have in my can outside my house? That's not going to this recycling facility that you're talking about. Is this recycling facility you're talking about? It's like if somebody wants to collect cans and physically bring them and get a few cents for each can.
Yes, and it's much more than that. I think there is a green waste dumpster there that is going to be available to the community. Also, we talked about having the community cleanup days there, and so I believe that there's other elements just in addition to selling back your bottles and cans. There are other elements, and maybe Jeff can talk about those other elements a little bit.
I'll start.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like an explanation of how they're tied together, considering we have a current recycling that isn't tied to the contract.
The current recycling center that you have, that we provide for you behind Bel Air, we're not able to secure that site, and we're not able to provide the greenway services that we've talked, the free greenway services that we've talked about at that site. Cameron Park is our busiest center. If you haven't been there, you should come. There are many Cameron Park residents that like to take their bottles and cans and extra recycling and bring it to the facility. So it's very well used. It's a big deal for the residents in Cameron Park. Having a secured location means that we will not have the illegal dumping that we have. Unfortunately, behind Bel Air, you know, it's hard to keep your eyeballs on that when you're closed. And so there is a tremendous amount of illegal dumping there. And frankly, the owners of that facility at any time could say, you can no longer be here. They have that right to say at any time. So this other location gives us an opportunity to be able to do the services that we've talked about with the additional green waste overflow for customers. And they used it a lot when it was at the fire station. It just wasn't appropriate to have the fire department managing, you know, the bins, right? So they asked us to discontinue that. Jeff, do you want to speak to this issue at all?
No, only that we're looking at about at least $135,000 investment to grade and upgrade the facility, fence it, and do the things that we need to do. We've met with the Design and Review Committee. They've made recommendations with regard to landscaping and those things, which will actually increase amount. And we do think that we want to make this commitment. Frankly, we want this buyback center, not only because it'll be safer and more secure and better for the public, but for our drivers. We encounter and clean up the illegal dumping messes that are there. It's unsanitary. Frankly, it's dangerous for us to be working there in an unsecured location. And for our employees, drivers and the folks that work at the buyback center, we have a very strong vested interest in wanting to relocate the buyback center to a fenced and secure location. And we think that the one that we've found between Duroc and Saratoga enables excellent public access and will encourage utilization of the facility. We think that's very important.
Thank you. And with regards to the 10-year extension, Jill, what is standard for a franchise agreement such as this? Is a 10-year typical?
Well, I think that they're pretty much long-term contracts. I think especially when they're investing in things like the MRF and the recycling center and things like that. Also, there is a large equipment investment as far as, trucks and, dumpsters and all of those things. So generally, these are long-term contracts. And if an RFP is being contemplated, generally you contemplate that RFP well in advance of the ending term of the contract, so that if another vendor does come in, there is that shift of resources in that preparation so that it's a seamless transition. So, and
can I just add to Director Scobie, our current contract with El Dorado County, once the MRF is completed, will expire in the year 2040. This is, again, we are making large investments in this community for the entire western slope, which includes Cameron Park. And so, we've got the contracts that are in the county that we hold expire in 2030, 2033, and 2040. So every other jurisdiction has extended their contract term, really in support of the newly constructed material recovery facility, in addition to the additional programs that we have offered, put forward, and instituted.
Thank you for that information. Any further discussion from the board?
Has El Dorado Hills had their approval of their new contract?
El Dorado Hills extended their contract a number of years ago, and their contract is set to expire, I believe, in 2030.
Any further questions from the board?
One question for my fellow director. Director Carlson, I recognize your concerns on the organics and the increased prices. And like has been said, we had already started that discussion in budget and admin too, because we share that. I guess my question would be, what would you imagine would be different in weighting? I'm curious if the organics bill comes down and it affects everybody, it affects every disposal company, it affects every jurisdiction, it affects every district. How would weighting make anything different for us?
So again, I wish I had the expertise of Mr. Stanton and all these other professionals here, but if we just agree tonight to extend the contract 10 years, starting 3 years from now, that's kind of like a 13-year future, then we're already locked in with a great partner, but we're locked in with this partner, and that means that it's just going to be that much more of a kind of automatic yes, basically, to the future increases, because we
Right.
already have them as a partner. And I imagine that because they already have exclusive franchise to the customers in the Western Slope, more or less, that it would be hard for a competitor to come on in. But you know, it's 2020, right? Everything's turning upside down. There's game-changing situations all over the place. What if in 3 years there is some kind of crazy competitor that nobody had seen coming out of the blue, and maybe they have a solution that nobody had thought of with some other technology? And I just so what I see different is that things are changing very rapidly right now, and that potentially there could be some kind of competitive advantage. And I would like to see what that is before locking in for the next 13 years right now.
I hear you. And so you understand some of my consideration in this too is what are the options then if we don't do that? So do we put it out and there's another provider? The practical piece for me and my consideration there is, okay, so who else and where are they? And any other provider is further away. It's going to create a higher cost of gas, which is part of what the CPI is tied to. It's actually going to potentially create more air waste, and distance tends to affect service in my experience. So those are some of the things that I considered as I was looking at this. Yeah, it'd be nice to find something that's cheaper just for the penny, but I don't want to be pound foolish in it. And so spinning out all of those considerations, that was why I felt comfortable bringing this to the board, just because these have to be longer term considerations. And yeah.
I do. I mean, I appreciate it. I think part of what makes me a little less comfortable with it is, again, the quarterly cash dividends that are going to shareholders right now. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's, you know, there's the company is doing great. And I would like to see a little bit more of the expenses when they got to get the benefit of the recycling. I'd like to see maybe the shareholders bear some of the expenses.
Well, and it's probably good to put perspective on that. I think you might have mixed up Waste Management and Waste Connections. Waste Management is based in Texas. Waste Connections is based out of Canada.
Well, I looked at I actually looked I looked at the signature of the gentleman who would be co-signing, who would be signing the contract.
Yeah.
Mr. Worthing something.
Yeah.
He's in Texas. I mean, I have nothing against Texas, but
no.
I don't think I mixed up the companies. I mean, I did do the steps from this company to the owners.
And for me, it's just about perspective on that too. Waste Connections dividend is 0.74% right now, which is less than 1%, which as far as any utilities is really low. And I don't fault a company for making a profit, even in the pandemic. There's a lot of companies making lots of money just because of the situation. So and we are a small player in it. So this is not arguing with your point. I agree. The company needs to be able to take care of its customers. I'm just not sure if we're a big enough dog to make an impact.
Right, but we do have a responsibility to the residents in our community. So that's what I'm trying to stand up for, not, with all due respect,
So
not for the
make
shareholders.
make a motion.
I'm not making a motion. I'm sorry, and I have to plug my computer in. I'm right here. I'm listening.
All right, Holly, would you like to make a motion?
I thought Felicity had the floor.
No, I'm not making a motion. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve. I'll get the right language here. I'm sorry. Pull that back up. Sorry, I don't have the hard copy in front of me here. I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2020-18, which is the El Dorado Disposal Proposed Contract Amendment and Rate Adjustment.
I will second.
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay, Ellie Wooten second. We have a first and a second. Could you do a poll vote, please, Jill?
Yeah. Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Aston?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
No.
Director Wooten?
Yes.
Director Morrison?
No.
All right, the resolution passes 3-2. Moving on to our next item, number 11. It's a public hearing. Approve Resolution 2020-19 stating the purposes and fixing the amount of money to be raised by taxation to the district to pay voter-approved debt for the fiscal 2020-21 and setting the tax rate. So let's go ahead and open that public hearing and hear from staff.
Vicky's still, there's Vicky. Vicky, you're muted, Vicky.
There we go.
There you go.
Wake up there, Vicky.
This is an item that comes before your board every year. It's a requirement of the county that the board approve this resolution in order for us to collect the assessment that funds our GO bond payments. And there's really nothing tricky about it except for the calculation, but it's pretty regular. I mean, we do it every year, and it's based on a factor that is calculated, and then it's applied to $100 of secured assessed valuation up to whatever your property costs. This, I want to make one comment. This rate it reflects an increase. And that increase is attributable to the county's requirement that we used fund balance last year. So we used residual fund balance to bring down the rate last year. And then this year, since we fully exhausted that reserve, now we're back to a regular rate. And that's pretty much what this does.
Vicki, could you, just for the audience, let everyone know what the GO bond is?
Oh, yes. It's a general obligation bond that that funded the construction of the community center.
Thank you. All right, any questions from the board before we take it out to public comment?
Not for me.
Okay. Yes, Eric?
No.
Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and hear from the public. And Nikki, we're looking for any raised hands. So the public, if you would like to speak regarding this item, we'd love to hear from you. You can press the little blue raise hand button under the participants icon, or you can text Nikki or chat with Nikki directly, or admin, or whatever her name is on that list.
There are no raised hands.
Okay, having no public input, we will close the public hearing and let's see how the board would like to proceed. Is there a motion?
I'll move. I move to approve Resolution 2020-19 stating the purposes and fixing the amount of money to be raised by taxation to the district to pay voter-approved debt for the fiscal year 2021 and setting the tax rate.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Could we get a poll vote, please? Jill?
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Easton?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Director Morrison?
Aye.
All right, the resolution passes 5-0. Moving on to the next item, board informational items. We have general matters to and from board members and staff. And I think I'm going to start. And specifically, I would like to ask my fellow board members to take the CSDA training regarding the general manager performance reviews before our September board meeting. So Nikki will send you the link, and it is a short, I think it's about 1 hour, and it pretty much educates the viewer on how and why you're viewing your general manager or executive officer when you watch the video. So that's kind of your homework for next board meeting. And I also wanted to bring your attention to that in September, there will be a closed session regarding the general manager's contract and performance review. And I may have more matters.
What date was this?
At the next board meeting, which is what, September, what's our next board meeting, Jill?
16th.
Yes, September 16th, please. And so I might have more, but let's go ahead and start. Let's start with Felicity. Any matters to and from?
Thank you. Since our last board meeting, I had the pleasure of attending the Cameron Park Farmers Market, and I just really enjoyed that. Masks and social distancing and all. I enjoyed seeing the just gorgeous, delicious produce that's there. Very colorful. I know this was in the general manager's report, but I really enjoyed meeting with Rotary regarding the Parks Improvement Plan. And I'm just so excited to see members of the community just raring to go and move forward with some of the park improvements and wanting to get involved. And last, if anybody wants to watch movies tomorrow night and maybe the next day, there's some short films. If you buy a ticket, I think it's $20. It benefits girls and women on the Western Slope, helping them in their education moving forward. And that's offered by Sir Optimus International. And it's on my Facebook page. There's a link, Felicity Carlson Facebook page. So I hope that you will buy tickets. It's about 90 minutes total of short films. They're cool films. And there's also an auction of coffee and wine and, you know, all the usual fun stuff you find in auctions. And I hope you bid against me on some of the items and see if you can beat me. All right. So anyway, it's on my Facebook page, and it's the virtual film festival. Thank you.
It's called Luna Fest. It's been in existence for quite a few years. It's really great, and there are some really great movie packages this year.
And Holly, do you have any other more matters to and from?
No, other than I have been going to the dog park. I would love to promote the dog park a bit more. I'd like to see the dog park get cleaned up a bit more. It's looking a little tattered. A lot of what we used to do was hose down the infields a little bit more, do some more weed blowing, do some more maintenance around the fence lines. I thought that we were going to move the billboard from back where the entrances are up to the front with the implementation of the Cal Fire billboard, which absolutely looks wonderful, with the new signage for the Paul J. Ryan Memorial Park and with the installation of the bricks for the dog park. I think the dog park needs some attention, and I'd really like to see that happen. And without Pooch Plunge this year, maybe there's something we can do on social media just to promote the dog park itself. And other than that, nope, nothing else.
Thank you, Holly. Ellie, do you have any matters to and from? We really need to know how you're doing.
I'm doing fine, thank you. I think hopefully when we have our first live meeting, I'll be there. On the dog park thing, you know, we went out there and Michael made that sign for people to please lock the doors and so forth, and it was a really nice sign. And it wasn't maybe 2 months or something, there was a storm. Tree fell and naturally smashed our sign all to bits, and that just annoyed me to pieces. But anyhow, that's the dog part. But no, there's not much else I have to report on.
Thank you, Ellie. And Eric.
Just a couple of things. I want to thank the CSD staff as they're continuing to work at how to utilize our facilities, our properties in the crazy restrictions that we have right now. Still to have some things happen, and seeing particularly in schools how they're having to pivot on a dime the Friday before school starts to change things.
Yeah.
And recognizing that our CSD is having to have those in considerations in connection with other municipalities, other districts in the area. I just want to thank them for their continued work with that and trying to be creative to keep our community connected to us, because it would be easy to just people disconnect and not be involved and not see what's going on. As well as, so thank you for the ways you've been able to try and utilize our facilities. I'll do my regular plug, which is the schools are gonna need some help. There are already groups that in the schools that are not able to exist or meet because of restrictions, but they could utilize, potentially utilize district properties for outside gathering. And I would love to see us continue to seek out those conversations. And Jill, I'll be sending a couple people to you from some of the schools just to see what's possible.
Okay.
But this is one of those times where we continue to come together, and I really appreciate the work that's been done around all that. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Eric. And I actually do have a few more items. I will be attending the Special District Leadership Training Workshop Academy. I will be attending, those are, you know, spread over several months. So I'll report back as I attend.
Oh.
And I also would like to bring your attention to a poster that has been placed at the lake. It's a poster of fishing debris that Jen put together in the Parks and Rec Department. It's very creative, pretty much illustrating the issue of fishing debris that's left at the park. And this was collected by a resident, and she did a miraculous job of really making it look like bringing awareness. And also I want to thank Mike and Parks and Rec staff for putting up, there's new fishing line recycling containers at Cameron Park Lake. They look kind of strange, actually. They're like this weird PVC tube. But I'm really curious to see how these, you know, how they work, and see if we actually start making a difference in the debris that's left out there. And I also want to thank staff. I always think they're amazing. They're just making, you know, here we are rolling along, doing our board meetings and our public, you know, public hearings, and they're just rolling with the punches. And I just want to thank all the staff for just making this, given the situation we're in, as painless as possible. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. All right, does staff have anything?
Well, one, the fishing debris recycling containers, we're talking with the Cameron Park Community Foundation to see if they will help pay for those. So we're trying to get a donation for that. Just a reminder to everyone that the community center will be dark. Well, it's always dark, but the office will be dark tomorrow. There will be no staff here, and there will be no electricity. So Everybody is working from home, but we can't even work remotely because there will be no power here. So PG&E is upgrading our panel so that they can plug in a generator here so that we can serve as a community resource center during the public safety shutoffs. So anyway, important work, but we will not be here tomorrow. Office will be dark. People will be available a little bit online. And then we'll be back to work on Friday. Also, I think that Callan is still here, and we had a pretty significant house fire that he may just want to brief you on.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. A couple weeks ago, we had a structure fire in the air park off of Fairway at the end when you come in the air park. And myself and Jed were actually out of town, but our partner Brian Mackwood, he's the next battalion over, he arrived with the engine, and they had a significant amount of fire in the attic. And the crews were able to make a pretty aggressive attack on the fire for about 15 to 20 minutes and got it knocked down. And we had several other agencies assist us from the local jurisdictions surrounding in El Dorado County, El Dorado Hills, and rescue. So no one was injured. The public was all safe, and the fire didn't spread to any other houses or into the vegetation.
Well,
Right.
ooh.
Thank you, Colin.
I want to chime in on that. Thanks for bringing that up, Jill, because I drove by there a day or two after that. And if you get a chance to, you need to do that. The work they did was stellar. When you look at the location and the trees and brush and everything around that, they stopped it. It could have been bad. So I just want to commend them for their excellent work in that. And that's just an amazing example of what they do. So thank you.
Exactly where was this? I mean, you're saying across from the air park.
Fairway and Boeing. You go Fairway down out of the air park, and it's right there on the corner. When you get there, you won't miss it.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and Jill, if I could add, I don't know if this is the time to add, but just on current events going on right now, we have 3 fire engines rented out to the unit to support the CAL FIRE mission. So engine 389, engine 388, and engine 289 are all out staffing our CAL FIRE stations under our assistance by hire agreement. And we have several paramedics and firefighters that are engaged all over the state with different assignments, kind of supporting the large fires we have going. So.
Great. That's great that we can help.
Thanks, Callan.
Thank you. All right, so any other matters to and from staff? Okay, moving on to LAFCO. Holly?
Okay, we had several items on the July agenda. We opened the public comment period for the draft municipal service review for El Dorado Hills CSD that we have been waiting on. I think I just saw on next week's agenda that might be being submitted. So that'll be interesting to see that. And I can let you know that. Do you know that, Jill, if that's? I'll have to look. I thought it was on August agenda, but I haven't got a finalized agenda from Jose yet.
Yeah.
But that'll be very interesting, and I think it would be well worth your time to review that when it's published.
Yeah.
For all the board, just to see, because they're a special district, we're a special district, and just to see where they are. We also approved the environmental review for an AT&T and a Bloxham annexation into the El Dorado County Fire Protection District. And this is an area off of 49 and Cold Springs Road. And a lot of what we do is, determine if an area needs services, whether it's water or fire or parks and recreation. That's part of what we do. We decide where towers need to be placed and what areas they will incorporate. Just as Cameron Park CSD did, we received the grand jury final report on the fire district consolidation. Had a long conversation about that. As you know, the month prior, we approved an MSR, Municipal Service Review, for the consolidation. We farmed that out. We decided to farm that out to an outside agency to bring a report back next year on recommendations for consolidation of fire services in the county. Big deal.
Any idea, Holly, when next year?
Next year, mid-year. It takes at least a year. We approved it, I think, in June or July. June, we approved it in June. And then we just talked about some other LAFCO business, training, reimbursement policies, and things like that. And we have a meeting next week, so I'm looking forward to that, as always.
Thank you, Holly. Our next item is our committee report, starting with budget and admin, and that would be Eric.
You, again, have seen most of our work from last meeting, being the Eldorado disposal contract amendment, fiscal budget, and then under the consent agenda, the disclosure of board and employee reimbursements. So that was the bulk of our time. We've got a few things coming up to you in the next few months, part of which Director Scobie alluded to, looking at the general manager performance review. We're going to examine templates to bring to us for discussion to see our process here and strengthen that. We're also looking at whether the board approved on a strategic planning process. We've come to the end of the 5-year strategic plan that previous board had approved and would work through. So we're looking at, it's time for something new. It's time for us to look ahead and begin that process. So that'll be coming down the pike this fall as well. Director Scobie, I don't know if there's anything else from budget and admin that you want to mention.
No, I already did. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, CC&Rs. Who does that report? Felicity?
I'm not sure. You know, Holly and I are both on the committee. Holly, do you want to talk about the last meeting? Or I can, if you like.
I don't think there really isn't much to report out. I think there is a panel, if you will, created to review our policies. Right, and right. I don't think we didn't have a report. And other than that, I think we've kind of put everything off.
That's right. The panel has not met yet. I think that we're pending, you know, the restaffing of CC&Rs. So I believe that complaints are still being accepted, but and that I think Mike Grassley's stepping up a little bit to help bridge until the new staff member's there. But
kind of putting everything off.
Yeah, a little bit on ice.
If I can ask members of the CC&R committee, have you seen any change in patterns in this COVID time in terms of complaints or community engagement of CC&R?
What's the question?
Have we seen what?
Have you seen any change in the patterns of community engagement with CCR, complaints or things in this time period?
Oh, like in the pandemic? You mean?
Yeah, and people are home more and they have more opportunity to say, hey, somebody's got their boat over here. Wow, they built that and they shouldn't have, or golly.
I think the problems that we have in our community, we have several of them very close to the community center. If you were to drive down Country Club, we have several in the air park that we need to keep our eyes on. Kate had worked to minimize, you know, prior to going to legal, you know, to the board. And I just think, you know, the sooner we can get someone to take over, the better.
Right.
Because yes, things can get lax.
Yes. Well, I just didn't know if there had been any change of pattern at this time, putting a
I
different.
don't think so. Do you, Felicity? I didn't think so.
I think the and I don't want to venture into actually having a meeting about it here, but I think that what I meant to mention earlier when we were thanking Kate for her service is that she did implement a I forget what it's called, but kind of a courtesy notice, so that the first time somebody is informed that the district is like, oh, you're not in compliance with your CCNRs, it's more of a courtesy educational notice. And I think that has changed the tone of communication between the district and maybe new residents who didn't know, et cetera. So I think apparently it's had a lot of effect, but without as much irritation.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we're not mad, but clean up your room.
Yeah, so aside from that, I haven't noticed any other patterns. I just that we do kind of try to prioritize, especially, it's not our exact role, but we do try to prioritize fire safety, things that are particularly
right,
irksome for fire safety.
Just curious if you'd see. That's all.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Fire and Emergency Services that did not meet.
There was no meeting for Fire and Emergency Services. And there was, I think a lot of it was because of the tower and the finances and all that. But anyhow, there was no meeting. Parks and Rec, I was out there with my daughter just about 5 days ago. We stopped at the Colonel's and got our lunch and decided to drive out to the dog park. And we sat out there and watched the people and the dogs and had a pretty good time. But there's not really too much at this time because Parks and Rec, Mike is certainly busy putting everything together, the games and so forth that we want to install in the parks.
And if I can add, at our last meeting, we had another presentation by the landscape architect that had taken in some of the feedback from the public and the committee, and we're looking forward to discussing this with the full board next month.
Yes.
And I won't go into the details and what we decided and whatnot, but I feel like we're really moving forward with this, with the parks improvement plan. And it's just good to have something good to look at during a pandemic, I will say that.
Really, truthfully.
Thank you. And Solar Energy Ad Hoc, there was no meeting, but there will be one soon, right, Jill?
Yeah, progress is being made. The RFPs have been accepted. The proposals are in. The cost of the project is in. And really what they're looking at now is analyzing different financial options for us to pay for it. And so once they have exhausted all of that, they're going to get back to the Solar Ad Hoc Committee. I would say probably within the next, maybe in the next 3 weeks. So we'll be looking forward to that. And I saw Glenn Rumbaugh on the Zoom meeting earlier tonight. So I don't think he's still here, but so he's around.
That's good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have arrived at the end of our agenda. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
I'll second the motion.
Holly seconded the motion. And so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe, stay cool.
Take care.
Oh my God.
Stay cool.